This is Mark Bell from Slingshot World Headquarters, and we're inside of our new studio. We're still working on it, as you can see. I wanted to share something with you guys today. I've been thinking about Operation Get Less Fatterest, and I just wanted to give you some simple rules, a couple things that you can equip yourself with, ways of being less fat. So let's get down to it. Number one is walking. You guys hear me talking about this all the time. You hear me talking about it on Instagram. You've been hearing me talk about it for years. You also hear my boy, Stan the Rhino Efforting, talking about how important the 10-minute walk is. The thing that we love about a walk is the fact that walking is so simple. I can tell you, hey, look, man, when you do a burpee burns the most calories in the shortest amount of time. It is probably the single greatest body weight exercise that you can do to elicit the greatest response in terms of how many calories you could burn per second or per minute or whatever it would be. However, how many burpees can you do? And how often are you going to do burpees? Compliance is the science. If you can't stick to something, it doesn't matter how efficient it is or how effective it is. If the intensity is too great, you're going to be turned off by it. You're going to be like, oh man, I hurt my wrist the other day. I don't feel like doing burpees. Oh, my knee kind of hurts. I don't feel like doing sprints. There are a lot of great things that you could do where you could really burn a lot of calories very, very efficiently. You could go to the gym and do some steady state cardio. However, that takes 30 minutes It takes 30 minutes of you being on the piece of cardio equipment. You have to get your heart rate up to 135 to 145 because that's usually a good range to burn a lot of calories and to burn some fat and to be at a steady state cardio, right? To get the benefits of steady state cardio, right? But I think something that people are missing out on is the fact that it also takes you 20 minutes to get to the gym. It just really slows you the hell down, right? It takes you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long it is. Even if it's in your garage, let's face it, we use those treadmills and those different things in our garage kind of as coat racks and just collecting a bunch of dust and collecting a bunch of crap. And we're not using them. But it's really easy to convince yourself to walk. So that's why walking is always going to be my number one exercise that I go to, that I recommend to everybody all the time. So you have a sister that's heavy, you have an aunt that's heavy, you have a brother, you have whoever it is in your family that's going to come to you on Thanksgiving and say, hey man, I need to make some changes. What should I do? Where should I start? Tell them to come to this channel, number one, but also tell them to get on their 10-minute walks. Number two, fasting. We have intermittent fasting, which is pretty simple to follow, simple rules. You just simply don't eat for many hours. I would say that if you're not used to fasting at all, that you only fast every other day. If you're not used to fasting, only fast every other day. I said it twice in a row on purpose because I think that that's really critical. If you just start fasting out of nowhere, you're going to start to get really hungry and you're going to be in the same boat that you were in before, and that boat is being fatter because you're going to be really hungry. I don't want you to be really hungry. I don't want you to be ravenously hungry. I want you to learn to adapt to hunger. I want you to learn what it's like to get a little pulse of hunger here and there, because pulses of hunger happen 3 times a day, even when you do eat. So with or without eating, you get these pulses of hunger a couple times a day. I would like for you to learn to ignore them from time to time. So fast every other day, maybe only try about 12 hours at first, work your way into 14 hours, then work your way into about 16 hours. And 16 hours of fasting every other day would be a really, really great start. I know some of you have already been doing fasting, so you might want to try this instead. So in addition to a fast, I would say that fasting for me is just not consuming any calories. So whatever way you got to do that, you want to drink coffee, you want to drink tea, or we can just say, hey, look, under 50 calories, because there might be calories in everything, right? There might be small amounts of calories in everything. So let's just say under 50 calories for whatever extended period of time that you would like to fast for. But another option that you can do is called a protein-sparing modified fast. And what that refers to is that you're only having protein during your fast. So that would be what I do on pretty much almost every day. And I've been doing this probably for the last 15 years. Protein-sparing modified fast. It's also shared in the War on Carbs, where I basically talk about having a protein shake during my fasted period, okay? It's really actually breaking the fast, but it's only protein. So I usually do that I usually put Slingshot whey protein our Slingshot hydrolyzed whey protein chocolate powder. I usually put it in a cup of coffee in the morning. Now, you could put it in hot coffee, but it doesn't work great in hot coffee. No protein, except for collagen protein, works very well with heat. The protein gets destroyed, it gets denatured, and it's not as good for you at that point. You're kind of burning up some of those amino acids that we're seeking, right? So I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest in a cold brew coffee, some sort of cold coffee of some kind, and also, you know, no sweetener and no cream, unfortunately, because we're doing a protein-sparing modified fast. There's a few other ways you can go about doing it. I guess you could eat a couple of egg whites if you wanted to. You could do it that way. But we're really trying to keep the amount of calories super low, and we're just having protein just to kind of get us through this short period. When you utilize intermittent fasting, the reason why it's so effective and the reason why it helps is, number one, it helps you get used to hunger. It also is going to help you get used to cravings, which in my opinion are two different things. Once you start to get used to hunger, you get to tell yourself, and you get to no longer be a slave to your food. You get to say, hey, you know what? It's actually okay to be a little bit hungry. You should be a little bit hungry. People that are healthy, they usually aren't obsessed with food. People that look really lean, people that look really healthy for whatever reason, they're wired a little bit different than some of us. Their faces are thinner and stuff like that, and they're not obsessed with food. They don't think about it. They might even sometimes say, oh man, I went the whole day, I didn't even really think about food much. And you're like, man, how's that even possible? You're like, I've been thinking about food since the time I woke up. That's what fasting will help you with. It will help you get over that hump. You won't be thinking about food all the time. Another great benefit of fasting is the fact that you don't need to prep your meals. And that leads me to number 3, prep your meals. So I'm not a huge fan of prepping meals. You won't see me walk around with a lot of prep meals. However, I do utilize a company called Icon Meals, and I have prep meals prepped for me because I find that to be convenient. I find it to be easy to talk myself out of making a bad decision because I have the prepped meals. So whether you can afford prepared meals from a company or you have to do it yourself, either way, if you have some frozen prepared meals in your freezer, or even just, you know, prepped a day or two ahead of time, I think it makes it more complicated if you're not freezing them. That's what I like so much about getting it from a meal prep company, is it usually shows up frozen. You can keep it frozen. You keep it frozen for a while. Like, I can keep these things in my freezer for however long I need. I can also travel with them easy. Sometimes I'll bring them into work, and it's just super convenient. I microwave it for 4 minutes, 5 minutes. When I'm on my way home from work and I'm thinking about making a bad decision, I'm like, oh man, we should get pizza tonight as a family, or do something fun or different tonight. It's easy for me to talk myself out of that when I know, I'm like, oh man, I got salmon and rice just sitting in the freezer. All I gotta do is microwave it for 3 minutes and we're good to go and we're all set. And so I do realize that some of you, the finances sometimes is an issue when it comes to this, but I think it's worth it, because the time that you spend to drive to Costco, the gas that you spend, time is money, as you guys know, and I think that it's a great investment to invest in some meal prep. Another way to ensure, another way to help you to be less fat, which would be rule number 4, is to simply eat some vegetables. I personally am not a huge fan of vegetables. I don't eat a lot of vegetables, but vegetables can assist with driving down your hunger. They can give you a little bit of bulk fiber, and they don't cost you much in terms of calories. Just make sure that the vegetables aren't a vehicle for a lot of other calories. Like, you're not soaking them in butter, you're not soaking them in oil, and so forth. That you're cooking them as natural as you can, and then maybe putting a little oil on at the end with a little bit of salt and things of that nature. Number 5, let's keep that protein really high. We talked about protein modified fasting earlier, but we didn't really talk about keeping that protein really jacked up. You guys heard me talk about protein leveraging many, many times in the past, but I think it's critical. I think it's crucial. So keep that protein high. 1 gram per pound of body weight is the minimum, I think, and I think most of you should be at 1.25 grams per pound of body weight. That would be my recommendation. Keep that protein high. You're going to notice that your hunger and your cravings start to go way down. Another thing, what are we on? Number 5? Number 6. We're on number 6. A 6th way of being less fat is to occupy your mind. Find stuff to do. What are you interested in? Going to the gym. One of the reasons why the gym is so important is that going to the gym takes up about 2 hours of a chunk of time, takes X amount of time to drive to the gym, takes X amount of time to do the actual lifting, right? And it takes X amount of time to get the hell back home, right? So there's 2 hours right there that you're not eating a bunch of bad food. There's 2 hours that you're not making a bad decision. Now, here's what can change your life. If you train early in the morning, and this isn't impossible, there are people that probably do this, but it's really rare. If you train at 5 o'clock in the morning, at 7 o'clock, you're not eating a bunch of Fritos and you're not drinking a Coke, sitting at your desk waiting for work to start. You're probably going to go home, you're probably going to have a couple eggs, a couple avocados, maybe a slice or two of bacon, and you're probably going to show up to work fired up with a cup of coffee in your hand. And then people are going to be like, what happened to this guy? It might take a little while to become that guy, but over a period of time you will. So make sure that you're finding ways to occupy your mind. Make sure you're finding ways to, when you get to the gym and you spend that time in the gym, it's going to do so much for your brain, so much for your body, and it's going to do a lot to chew up your time. If you do that 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, and like I said, it takes about 2 hours, even though you're not actually even lifting for 2 hours. That's taken up 10 hours a week or something like that. That's a good amount of time. Other ways to occupy your mind is to go to a movie, read a book. What are your favorite things to do? You like to fish, you like to hunt, get out there and do some things that are different. Golfing. You're not going to be like eating a big old sandwich while you're golfing or something like that, right? So try to find stuff to do where eating isn't the central focus, which is almost always is here in America for us, and that's why we have such things as Operation Get Less Fatterest. To conclude this, I'd like to kind of finish off with just saying you have to find a way to continue to move every single day, and you have to find things that are simple. When things are simple, you'll repeat them. When things are really difficult and they're hard, that's cool because it can give you a lofty goal. Having a lofty goal can be fantastic, and I'll give you an example of it. One of my favorite people to listen to is a guy named Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn talks about being a millionaire. And he said when he was young, he had a goal. When he said when he was young, he didn't have any goals. And his mentor, when he met him, he said, well, you don't have any goals. He's like, I can guess your bank account. And he guessed his bank account right down to the dollar. And Jim Rohn couldn't believe it. It like caught his attention. He was like, what is this about? He's like, kid, you got to set some goals. He's like, if you don't have any goals, then he's like, you'll just kind of walk around aimlessly. You won't know where you're going. You don't have a target. How are you ever going to hit a target that doesn't have like a bullseye on it? We need a bullseye. We need something in our sights, basically. And so he told Jim Rohn, he said, hey, you know what would be a great idea? I know you're way into business and that you want to mentor under me. This guy was already an established businessman. He said, you should make it a goal to be a millionaire. And he kind of took him by surprise that he said that, because at the time he didn't have any money. He said, you should set a goal to be a millionaire for what it will make of you to achieve it. So that's where having a good goal, but also knowing why you want to have that good goal. So imagine if you set a goal right now of losing 80 pounds. Okay, that's a big goal, to lose 80 pounds. Or you have a goal to one day have abs. We've heard people in here at SuperTraining, at Slingshot World Headquarters say, I'll never have abs, and we've proved them wrong. We've done it a bunch of times, and we'll do it a bunch of times over and over and over again. When you set a lofty goal like that, it's great because it really kind of puts your butt on the line. It's very difficult to do something like that, to put yourself out there like that. But when you do that, you're also putting stuff out into the universe, and those things are going to come back to you. Once you kind of say that, once you open up about that, you're going to start to align a lot of the things you do on a daily basis. You're going to start to align the things that you do on a daily basis. Your goal and your actions will start to really come together really well. But one of the things I see people doing is a lot of times they are setting these lofty goals, but they're not following them up with their actions because they really don't know what they're talking about, or they don't know why they have that goal. If you want to have a goal to have a six-pack, then I need you to tell me why you want to have that goal to have a six-pack. And if you were to come back at me and say, because I want to learn what it's going to do for my brain, then I would say, you're on to something. You're going to, but it could be your own Could be your own personal reasons for wanting to achieve such a thing, but it's not so you could stick it to somebody who called you fat. Those aren't the reasons. The reasons are what it can possibly make of you. It can make you into a savage. It can turn you into a savage because it can teach you a lot of great things. But I see so many people, they have really lofty goals, and we got to take this thing one day at a time. When it comes to nutrition, this is the only way to do it. It's one foot in front of the other over a really, really long period of time. How do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time. We can't chew off the whole thing all at one time. You got to really take your time with a lot of these things. So stick to some of those basic things that I mentioned. The last thing, and this is probably the easiest thing, is just to cut out calories that come from drinks except for protein shakes. Calories that come from drinks except for protein shakes. Your orange juices, your whatever, your juices, your smoothies, all those things can be great and they can be part of a nutritious diet. However, I think a lot of times it's just extra calories that you don't need when you're already behind. So that's kind of a little bonus there that I threw in there at the end. Thank you guys so much for watching Operation Get Less Fatter. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.